Recording? Okay. All right. So I asked here on here to ask any questions you might have. Just put like what question number you are concerned about for the 220, 230 practice test, or anything or any other questions that you might have. Let's see. Bridget, is that you from Micro? I know you're at a different campus, so if you have other questions, so hello. If you have other questions that weren't that you might see on your test because you're not at Allegheny, just let me know and I'll try to address those. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear off my drawing here. So this test is very similar to the one you took last semester in the spring semester for second semester test. 25 questions, all showing your work, you'll have a variety of questions that you've already seen before, and a few questions you have not seen before. Actually, I think it's just the one question you haven't seen before, and that is the heparin protocol question. But I'll wait and see if you have any questions, or if you just want to jump in the heparin protocol, just say that.
Could we jump into the heparin protocol?
Absolutely. Yep. So, and then I do have the chat box open. So if you want, you can just, if you type it into the chat box, I will see that. But I got an answer. So let's just jump into the heparin protocol. Before I do that, I just want to say that, and I'm going to type this in here. If you do, if you go on YouTube and do a search for me as Dr. Rad, and then it's called the Rad Feeder. Is that? If you go on YouTube and search for that, you'll actually see me working out the heparin protocol, and you can go on there and you can get all that information and see some of the other questions that have been answered over the years for different semester tests. And if there's any questions you want to also see worked out, I'm happy to do that. Okay, so I'm going to write everything up on my whiteboard. And so this is the heparin protocol for you guys, which is question 25. Could everyone see that I wrote question 25 there? So I'm going to make sure everyone can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. And like I said, you can just type in yes. You don't have to speak if you don't want to speak. So, but thank you for replying. Okay. So let's start off with figuring this monstrosity out. So first of all, this whole protocol here, there's a lot of information on here that you are not required to fill out. If you skip down to the very end of the question where it says answer the following questions, that's all we want you to answer. Just those questions pertaining to the protocol. So you're not filling in like the CDC, you're not filling in the GAIA school, the neuro checks. That would just be part of whatever the standard is for the protocol at the particular hospital where the heparin protocol is being done. If you do a Google search for heparin protocol, you will see it say standard weight-based heparin protocol steps 1 through 15 as listed there, okay? So you don't need to answer all those questions. You just need to answer the ones that are down below. Now I know, and this has been something that's been said to me over the years, just that the nursing department hasn't asked me to update these, that it would make more sense if this was all organized and not like as a number system here. And I agree with you. So, but once I show you how to navigate this, I think it makes it much easier to kind of figure out. So the first question that tells you is to calculate the number of milliliters to administer for the bolus, okay? In order to calculate the number of milliliters to administer for the bolus, I need to first know how to do a bolus. And that's where it starts off, both at the beginning of the question where it says protocol, and then also question 2. Okay, so it tells you, part 10 in the protocol thing. What it basically says is bolus with 80 units per kilogram, and then it also tells you to start the drip at 18 units per kilogram per hour. So those are the 2 important pieces of information that we need in order to start this problem. Now, it tells me 80 units per kilogram, but my patient's weight's in pounds. So step 1 is you need to convert the patient's weight from pounds to kilograms. Does anyone already have that figured out and want to tell me what number you got? You could speak or type, whatever's easiest for you. Okay, good. And that's what I got to. So you take 110 divided by 2.2, and you get 50 kilograms. Okay. So right now what I'm doing for question 25 is I'm starting to work on part A, okay, which is the number of milliliters to administer for the bolus. The first thing I needed is the patient's weight in kilograms. So I'm just going to take the patient's weight in kilograms and multiply by the bolus, 80 units per kilogram. You can write that however you want, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to eliminate kilograms, and we're left with units. We should have 4,000 units. Does that sound right? All right. Now that we have units, and if the question was how many units to administer, we'd be done. But that's not what the question is asking. The question is asking how many milliliters to administer for the bolus. So if you have your protocol in front of you, if you look at step 2 of the protocol, step 2 says heparin, 25,000 units in 250 milliliters, half normal saline, and then bolus dosage strength of 1,000 units per milliliter. So that's the information we use to calculate our bolus dosage strength. I'm going to multiply by the 1,000 units per milliliter. And so my answer for A is going to be 4 milliliters. There are some standards that are listed in this protocol that will always be the same no matter what the question is. Those standards are here and here. Those are standards that come from the protocol themselves. The only thing that I can change as the person who wrote the test is the patient's weight. Let's say the patient's weight was 200 pounds. Let's say the patient's weight was 175. That's really the only thing I can change in this particular question. Now, what would happen is if I change the patient's weight, let's say to like 175, you need to recall and remember to round when appropriate. Whenever we're going from pounds to kilograms, you want to round to the nearest tenth. And then whatever your answer is in the milliliter section, you would also want to round to the nearest tenth. So let's say you got an answer like 4.25 milliliters, and your answer would be 4.3 milliliters for the bolus dose. I know that that might not fly in a real heparin situation, meaning that you would probably give within a safe range. But this is not a safe range type of question. You will get those this semester in pediatrics, but you're not, and you'll actually have a separate pediatric dosage calc test that you'll take, but that's not what you're doing right now. So you don't worry about that. So that's how you do A. Any questions on where I got any of that information? Are you seeing where I found those numbers? Okay, thank you, Ashley. Okay, Sarah, thank you for asking. So Sarah, do you have the protocol in front of you? Okay, so do you see where I got 80 units per kilogram? And again, if it's easier for you to talk, by all means, just open up your mic. Okay. Do you see where I got the 1,000 units per milliliter? Yes. Yeah. So if you look at line 2 of the heparin protocol, it tells you what you have in normal, or the heparin in the normal saline, and the second sentence says bolus dosage strength of 1,000 units per milliliter.
Okay, but if you are looking at that for the first time, how would you know not to use the heparin 25,000? You always only look for bolus dosage strength.
Right, because it asks you for the bolus. So the question said calculate the number of milliliters to administer for the bolus. So you would use the bolus information to calculate the bolus dose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't use the bag, the IV bag, because that is for the drip rate question. So this is what I imagine is happening. The patient's already on, we basically just did a piggyback, I think that's the right term, of the heparin IV, and we added it to their current IV. And then we're going to take a separate dose, like an injection, and inject it into the port on the IV going into the patient. So we're basically going to get them started, and then we're going to put them on a drip for however long they're going to be on that drip for. So that's how you know. And I agree with you, like, you were not given any kind of like information on how to do this. I looked up information and figured out how to do this. But that's what you do, is you start off with the bolus dosage strength, which I imagine is like a syringe on the side that you're going to be like injecting basically, or adding to the already established IV. Is that helpful?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. And then the nice thing is, so in this protocol that I gave you guys, I actually gave you 2 questions to answer, but you're only going to get one of the 2 questions. What I mean by is A and B is 1 question, and then part C is 2 separate questions that are done the same way. A new bolus and a new drip rate. But on your actual exam, you're only going to get A and B, or parts, or C 1 and 2. So you're only going to get 2 of those. I tried to give you extra practice. All right. So let's go ahead and move on. So the first answer is 4 milliliters. And then, like I said, we'll practice this again. So let's go to B. B says, what's the infusion rate after you've done the bolus? So the infusion rate is, now you got to look at the IV. And the IV is the heparin 25,000 units and 250 milliliters, half normal saline. And then it tells us to start the drip at 18 units per kilogram per hour. We're talking about the same patient, so the same patient weighs the same, 50 kilograms times the 18, sorry if I can write, units, kilogram hour. Okay. Again, we know we're on the right track, we can eliminate that. And we'll get 900 units per hour. Then this is now that I've gotten to the 900 units per hour, now we know, and now we can use the units per milliliter to make the conversion, because the question says how many milliliters per hour. And so that's where we're going to take the, make a conversion, 25,000 units of heparin, and that's 250 milliliters half normal saline. That'll allow me to eliminate units. And then after I do this, I believe I get 9 mil per hour. As far as constants are concerned, this will always be here. This will always be here. If you don't like dimensional analysis, you're not going to like this heparin question. And I'm not saying that you need to like dimensional analysis, to like this question at all, but certainly being comfortable with dimensional analysis makes this question easier to navigate, because if you're trying to do desired over or ordered over half with this question, it will not work, at least not effectively. You can put the numbers together in a right way, and you eventually get the right answer. I just don't advocate trying that process. Does everyone see where I got the information to answer question B? So some of this, that's a good question. So 18, okay, and I'll get to you, Grace, hold on one second. So 18 units is standard for the protocol that I have found numerous times through textbooks and online. I don't know if that's standard in all situations. So. All right. So I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to go to the next steps. The next steps is basically a repeat of this information, okay? So if you have this written down, you can see where that is. So, you're welcome, Sarah. Yeah, I'd like to tell you that, yeah, it's a standard protocol in every hospital setting, but I imagine there's variations depending on, new information, things like that. Okay. So we're still on question 25. Now we're doing the C's. So C1. C1 says, or C says, after 6 hours, the patient has an APTT of 43 seconds. Now, one of the reasons why there's a box around steps 11 through 15 is because that's what happens after you've done your initial protocol. So essentially what question C is saying is that now we've had the patient on the protocol for 6 hours and we're reevaluating. Obviously, the complications that we're concerned about when we talk about heparin use is we don't want our patient to bleed out. We also don't want our patient to be continuing to clot. And so we want to make sure that everything's going well, or if we need to make adjustments. So we run them through the initial protocol, which is what A and B was. And now we're starting, and we're going to modify the protocol dependent on what the APTT is. So the other way that I can change this question is just give you a different APTT. I could say, so this one's 43 seconds. I could say it's 30 seconds. I could say it's 50 seconds. I could say it's 80 seconds. I could say it's 120 seconds. Whatever the case may be, and you could see what we would do in that particular box setting. So now that it says 43 seconds, I go and I look for the range of 43 seconds. Does everyone see that box or step 12 correlates with an APTT that's in the range of 36 to 44 seconds? Does everyone see that? Good. Okay. Like I said, the challenge is just trying to figure this thing out. I almost said this stupid thing out, but it's a challenge to figure this thing out because I know you haven't seen it yet. You haven't seen it yet. I don't know if you ever see it in actual class setting. I imagine you will see it once you go through a cardiac unit or something, but you just haven't seen it yet. So don't be so upset about it if you are getting upset about this. It just takes practice, and that's why I'm here, to kind of show you the steps to answer these questions. What I'm showing you is how to answer no matter what the question is. So give me 1 second. I've been talking already for a little bit over an hour and a half, so the throat's getting a little dry. All right, so we're talking about the same patient. It tells us in that box to rebolus with 40 units per kilogram, okay? And then it says to increase the rate by 2 units per kilogram per hour. So we got to go through a bolus again. but we're not going to do a full bolus. We're going to do half a bolus. So if you automatically say, well, if it was 4 milliliters before, it's 2 milliliters now, you answered that correctly. That's exactly how you do that. But for practice purposes, we start with the patient that's still 50 kilograms, same patient. We're going to calculate and multiply by our bolus order, which was the 40 units now instead of 80 per kilogram. If this were the, if we were doing an ATTT less than 35 seconds, we would just rebolus with 80. You wouldn't have to do any math if you already did part A, because it would be the same amount. You just rebolus them. And then the other ones don't have any other boluses. So what I would say is just for somebody who is an instructor and likes to challenge you and make sure you're getting, having some practice with some of this math stuff, most likely your APTT is always going to fit in that step 12 section. So just letting you know where that is. This equals 2,000 units. Now I need to convert units into milliliters again, okay? Any guesses where I'm going to get the information to convert units to milliliters? I'll help you out. It's the only bolus dose strength that we're given in the whole protocol. So we just use that same bolus dose strength, which was what? 1,000 units per milliliter. You got it. Good job, Grace. So units are eliminated, and we got 2 ml. Again, that was exactly half as the initial. All right. Let's move on to the drip. The drip is giving us a little bit of something different. So we got 9 milliliters per hour for the first drip, and it says to increase by 2 units per kilogram per hour. The first time I saw this question, I thought, oh, I'll just add 2, and it'll be 11 milliliters or 11 milliliters per hour. Obviously, milliliters and units are not the same thing. So we got to remember that that is not how we answer this question. So how we answer this question is we have 50 kilogram patient, and then we go back to the original drip rate. The original drip rate was 18 units per kilogram per hour. We're going to increase the rate by 2 units per kilogram per hour. What is my new units per kilogram per hour? Well, it would just be 18 plus 2. My new units per kilogram per hour would be 20. Does everyone see where I got 20 from? I guess if you don't see it, just you could say no. That's probably a little bit. Okay. Okay. All right. So let me help you guys out who are not seeing. Does everyone see where that my initial protocol says to start the drip at 18 units per kilogram per hour? Does everyone see where that is? Those who answered no, Ashley and Bahar. Do you see where it says start the drip at 18 units per kilogram per hour? Okay, good. So the protocol says to increase the rate by 2 units per kilogram per hour. It was already at 18. Now we're going to up it by 2 more. So 18 plus 2 is 20. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Yeah, this is completely new. The only reason I can tell you that I have absolute confidence in this question is because I'm really, really good at doing this math stuff. I really am. And so there was no direction or guide when I initially was trying to figure this out. I'm one of those guys that can look at the answer key, work the question backwards, and then figure out how to answer other questions using that method. that occurred because I had really bad math teachers when I was in high school. And I found out that they weren't going to teach me, so I taught myself. Thus, you get that gift that I'm giving to the world and giving to the nursing department by trying to work through these things and try to explain something that can't otherwise be explained, or at least I haven't found a clear explanation. And I'm not saying that I am the clearest in explaining everything that I try to explain, but I try and break it down. So, no, you're welcome. So we started off with 18 units as the drop rate. Now I'm just adding 2 more because that's what the protocol told me to do. That's where the 20 units came from. So now I get 1,000 units per hour. Again, it's because I'm eliminating kilograms. I didn't write that up here. I don't know how much you guys care that I eliminate units. Now, the next thing is, so just like we use the bolus dose strength for the bolus, so bolus dose strength for the bolus, I'm going to use the same information on the IV for the flow rate. And that's at 25,000 units and 250 ml. So I don't want units. Put that on the bottom. You want milliliters. Again, what I'm doing is just highlighting things that are relatively constant. And then you get 10 milliliters per hour. So if you put 11, you'd be really close, but that would be a wrong answer. Again, the only thing that I can really change on this question, and really all I do change, is just the patient's weight, and then whether I ask you A and B or C, parts 1 and 2. Now, just because there's 2 questions listed here in this section, it only counts as 1 question. So let's say you missed this question. If you missed this question, it would only count as 1, and like you know that you can miss, you miss two questions and still pass. But you're not going to miss this because you're going to practice it. You're going to go to my YouTube channel and see that I've worked it out on pen and paper. I also worked out a separate example so you can see what it would look like if we had different numbers. And that's all I really did when I made up the test for this is I just changed the patient's weight and then I either asked A and B or C. So you won't get them all. Any questions on the heparin protocol? Okay, yeah, you have 1 hour to take the test, just like all your other drug calc tests that you've had so far. You have 1 hour to take it, 25 questions, and they'll give you a calculator. Because you're doing this, I believe your labs are in class, they're live in class, so it'll be a pen, pencil, paper situation, to my knowledge. Somebody asked about like a respondus type of test. I don't know if that's the case. Yes. So the reason it's different is because the bolus dose is just it's a separate entity. So it's not in the bolus dose is not in the heparin bag. The heparin bag is just what's attached to the patient and going into their IV and what we're setting the infusion rate for. So I don't know if you can like open up, the IV bag and like do a bolus from that. But what I imagine is happening is you have a separate stock vial of the bolus dose strength of heparin. You go in there with a clean syringe, you draw out the milliliters that you need, and then you inject the milliliters you need into the port that's available in the IV itself, and you're pushing that bolus dose strength. The 25,000 units and 250 milliliters normal saline is just the drip that they're on, so the heparin drip that they're on. So the reason they're different is just because they're even coming from different locations. Are you asking why we took the 250 ml, 25,000 units for For which question? For part 2? Because it asked us to calculate the new infusion rate. So when we're talking about infusion rates or drop rates or flow rates, we want to use the IV bag. You would only use the bolus dose strength for when you're giving a bolus dose. You're welcome. Like I said, I know this is hard to, I may not be explaining everything completely, but yeah, thank you, Robert. That's actually a better, more nurse-like lingo. Yeah, bolus, the bolus is either a syringe or a piggyback. It's usually a smaller quantity, but it's a higher concentration. The 25,000 units, 250 ml, I think is only a 100 unit per milliliter concentration. So it's a smaller or lower concentration, whereas the bolus is a higher concentration. Any other questions, or do you want to see another variation of this? Like, yep, we can do another example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I mean by constants. Okay, so I erased a couple of these. So someone just throw out a patient's weight. Okay, so 178 pounds divided by 2.2. And you get 80.909. So we're just going to say 80.9 kilograms. We'll round to nearest 10. And you can do 200 as well. Okay. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take that new weight and I'm going to put it right in here. So 80.9. And what I'm doing is I'm still just following the same protocol for after 6 hours, APTT was taken. It was 43 seconds, and now I'm just plugging in the information to show how it's different. I'm going to take that 80.9, and I wouldn't leave all the extra things past the decimal for this. For rounding to the nearest 10 should suffice from when we're going pounds to kilograms. But in reality, if you keep all the decimals, it'll still end up working out. So I'm going to take 80.9 times 40, and I'm going to get 3,236 units. I'm going to convert those into milliliters, so divide by 1,000, and I'm going to get 3.236, which I would just round up to, or round to 3.2 milliliters as my bolus dosage strength. So again, the only thing I changed, obviously, is my starting point, which was the patient's weight. If you were sitting there like, wait, how did I go from 3.236 just to 3.2? You round to the nearest 10. I'm going to do the same thing here. with the 80.9 kilograms times 20. And I'm going to get 1,618 units per hour. And then I'm going to multiply by 250, divide by 25,000. And then I'll get 16.2 milliliters per hour. Now, the thing I'm not 100% on is if you should leave the decimal there when you're doing an infusion rate. Technically, if the device allows for it, you should be able to plug in a decimal into the infusion rate. You couldn't do decimal drops. And then usually when I key this, I usually keep it where you round to the nearest tenth, even if it is in a flow rate sort of thing. Yep, you're welcome. So Sarah Stuck, you said 200 pounds. You do the same setup. 200, my calculator turned off. 200 divided by 2.2, and you get 90.9 kilograms, and then work through this on your own, or work through this the same way. And then you would do this first two examples the same way as well. Just use 80 units per kilogram and then 18 units per kilogram per hour for those first two sections. Are you guys starting to see the repetitiveness of this? There's a little bit of a factor, and that's one of the reasons why I write it kind of like a sentence structure, where it's patient's weight times what they tell you. You get units, then you multiply by either the bolus dose. So for the bolus questions, we do the bolus, stock, and then for the drip, we use the drip stock. So with bolus, always use the 1,000 units per milliliter. For the infusion rate, always use the 25,000 units per 250 ml. And then I think as an aside, this is, I think this is just 1/100. Just in case you ever wanted to just shorten that out. So. Correct. Yeah. And then, so Sarah, your question, what you just asked me is 100% correct. It will look exactly like it does in the practice packet, meaning that the whole protocol will be listed, nothing you need to memorize. The only difference will be the patient's weight, and then you're going to have to answer a bolus question and an infusion rate question. So it'll either be A and B, or it'll be C1, C2. And again, that's why I gave as practice 2 sets of questions. That way you have that additional practice. You only need to worry about one, but I just felt like I could build it in so you can do it. Because technically you can keep going. You can do another 6 hours later, and what is the APPT that, if it ends up being 50 seconds, then you would just say continue as, continue with what we're doing. No bolus required. Yep, you're welcome. Any other questions? Anything from any of the other questions that were listed there? Bridget, did your campus give you any kind of a practice test to work off of, or practice questions, or did they just say, here, you have to take it, good luck?
All they gave us was what's in the nursing manual.
That's not very helpful. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
But I was going to ask you, there's something in the nursing manual that says medication titration with the example of a nitro drip.
Okay. A lot of times, all they mean by that is that I just want to see if I have an example. I know I've done it before. They just want you to use either an infusion or usually just drop in it, and then just using nitrous system as an example. I don't have any specific. I was looking if I had any. That question on nitrous system. No, I have. I have my question, but that's not exactly what I'm looking for. Is there any examples in the nursing manual? Okay. No. If you, Bridget, if you can send me a screenshot of what that is in your manual, just email it to me. And I'll see if I can find an example to see if it's simpler than I'll just explain. Or not. I need to look at this. Yeah. And I will get back to you and let you know. I find that I have done review sessions for the other campuses before. A lot of it is just you guys don't, or the other campuses that doesn't have someone like me who has basically rewritten all the tests and standardized it for all the students. That's something out of one done. But the test has always been the same. It's just stuff. Nurses have math anxiety. Absolutely, Grace. All right, so question 21. Oh, okay. How about now? Is it any better? I'm getting feedback that my voice is kind of scratching, maybe it's in and out. Is anyone else getting that?
Yes, your audio is weirding.
Okay.
It was okay at the beginning. It was after you started answering Bridget's question.
Okay. I wonder also sometimes that is also because we both have our microphones on. Is it still doing it now? Okay. Yeah. If it's choppy, it might. It could just be that my connection is getting. I don't know why. But I had my cell phone right next to the computer here. I'm wondering if that was the issue. I moved it away. It's still choppy right now. Yeah, still choppy. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know. Like, I have a microphone that I would need to set it up soon. One second. Let me see if I can. Try muting myself and unmuting to see if that refreshes anything. I don't know. Well, we're going to try and one. If we can do our writing. Question 21. The trick here is to ignore the table that says the table column. The milliliters that we have added. If they're not, this would be all to answering my question. So you can ignore that. That's just what the pharmacy is told or maybe the nurse is told for how much deionized water to add to the powder to get the concentration listed on the right side of the bottle. So this question says, okay, 350,000 units is what they ordered, and then to choose the strongest concentration. Strongest concentration is the 1 million units per milliliter. You can solve that question as such. Get that. That's so quick. Oh, okay. Very sensitive. Oh, what number do you guys have as your order? Yes. It says in the question, using the information below, choose the strongest concentration. So when you choose the strongest concentration, that's what gives you the 1 million units. Yep. So they told you to choose the weakest concentration, and then you choose 250,000. You're welcome, actually. Are there any other questions? Okay. Yeah, so question 22. So 22, oh, okay, thanks, Bridget. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like I said, my phone was right next to the computer at one point because I was using it as a calculator, and I'm wondering if that created choppiness. So thank you, Bridget, for the feedback. All right, so 22 is actually a, it's if you followed what we did in the heparin protocol, it's following the same strategy. So 22 says, you have 0.45% normal saline, 1,000 milliliters IV with heparin, 25,000 units, and it's to infuse at 1,000 units per hour. So all you're going to do is you're going to convert the 1,000 units per hour to milliliters per hour. So this is just like Part B in the heparin protocol and C2 in the heparin protocol, and I'll even write it exactly as I'm trying to mention it. So this is 1,000 units per hour. And then I'm just going to multiply by the 25,000 units. 1,000 on now. We eliminate units. I'm left with milliliters per hour. And then I get whatever that comes out to be. 40. Is that right? 40?
I see how you got to that answer, but how would you know to set it up in that way with the units in that order?
Okay, that's a good question. So I would say there's no One is just one way to edit, but the reason I come up with the way that I come up with is I know that initially my question is asking milliliters per hour. So I start off with by trying to organize my content or the parts of the equation so that I can arrange it so that I have a milliliter per hour. I already have a rate listed, which is 1,000 per hour. So that's why I start with that as my initial thing. That keeps the time at the bottom where I want it, and then the units at the top. The 1,000 milliliters and 25,000 units. I always say like this is a bag. This is my life. You can't separate the heparin from the normal saline. They're all the same thing. They're all mixed together. You always want to keep them together. Once I know that I have 1,000 units per hour, that I'm going for the milliliter per hour, I just rearrange which one goes on top. If this were asking me to convert milliliters per hour to units per hour, I would flip those numbers. But that's not what my question is. Does that help? You're welcome. So let's while we have the same question up, because question 23 is the exact same type of question. So I'll ask you. When I mean you, I mean anyone that's listening and participating. So it tells me I have 0.9% sodium chloride, 500 milliliters, IV with NUR, regular use, 500. So there's a whole lot of stuff written there. Okay, great. My first function. There's a whole lot of numbers in 23 that indicate the 500 units, 500 milliliters, 100. Those are the only thing I care about in the milliliters and the units. The simple thing is it says that you have a rate listed there at 10 units per hour. So the next thing I'm just going to start with that. This is simple. The other is a rate. Okay. By whatever is going to get rid of units and give me milliliters. Yeah, I know. Someone said that my point function. Sorry. Because I have, I'm going to start with my rate, and I'm going to iterate. That's what guides me into knowing what to choose. Okay? And then I just plug in the numbers as they are listed in the context of my question. Or question 22. Now, notice my question 23 is much easier because we can just eliminate my question. We can get rid of the units. So I left no milliliter per hour. I got that. Reality, a lot of this stuff is just because I know how to set it up, and I've been doing it for a while, and you guys, it's not a matter of practice and set it up. One of the reasons why, and I apologize for my strategy again or going out, this is one of the reasons why I like to use mental analysis, because especially for like science and medicine type questions, it only works 100% of the time. You've got to know how to use it. I can tell you that if your tool works great for a building a house, but if you don't know how to use the tool, it doesn't do anything. I give you a hammer and screwdriver, you don't know which of those pair together, it doesn't help things get along. Okay? You might be able to count it in through with a hammer, but that's definitely going to use it. So, all right, I don't know. I'll throw an idea for furniture. That's on my mind. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, first of all, you can email me if you have any specific questions. I'll give you my email address. I have it here. Okay. You can email me if you have any specific questions. You can go to my YouTube channel to navigate any of the other videos that might be there that might be helpful for you. And then you're also welcome to come. I'll be doing this section again at 5 o'clock this afternoon. And then on Thursday, I'll be doing this section at 1:15 and 5 o'clock as well. So you're welcome to come to any of these. And I also recorded this if you need to go through and rewatch this. I'll try and also post this onto YouTube as well. If there aren't any other questions, I wish you good luck on your tests. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. You're welcome, and thanks for dealing with the technical snafus.